Stephanie Williams is the founder and editor-in-chief of DC Music Download. It's DC's largest outlet for local music news. She's an Ohio native and moved here in 2009, and DC Music Download came around in 2012 to spotlight some of the incredible acts that she discovered while she was living in the city, in the DC area. So 5 years later, DC Music Download has grown from a small little blog into this full-fledged media company that includes a flourishing editorial, events, and cinematography division. So DC Music Download has grown, and along with the great scene here. So listeners, with that, it's my great pleasure that I get to introduce the founder and editor-in-chief of DC Music Download, Stephanie Williams. Say hi, Stephanie.
Hey, what's going on?
It is such a treat to have you here. And tell us the story, the brief story about DC Music Download now. How did it start? How did that happen?
Sure. So it kind of happened a little serendipitously, I guess you would say. So long story short, back in college, I was a broadcast journalism major, and I was doing a lot of the same things that I'm doing right now, covering a lot of the local artists and bands that were living in the city, and just kind of putting the word out there about some of the awesome acts that I was finding. So, that came and went. Moved to DC in 2009 to start an internship at Discovery Channel, which grew into a full-time job eventually.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and that was good, and I was kind of doing the corporate thing for a while, but I felt like there was something kind of missing, kind of getting back into that element of getting back into the music scene, going to shows, and just kind of putting myself in that world again. So around, I would say, like 2011, started going to more concerts, started meeting more people in the scene, started going to more DC shows and kind of discovering some awesome bands from there. And around that time, I was like, you know what? I feel like this kind of clicks with what I want to do creatively, which is to kind of get back into covering music again. So the origin of DC Music Download's name is actually because it was originally supposed to be a podcast only outlet, and we didn't have any writers, like any of the people that we have right now in terms of like editorial. So it was just myself, my recorder, and just kind of doing the thing.
You blew my mind, because I've been dying to know. I picked up DC Music Download in about 2013 or 2014. It just came on my radar, and I've been wondering. It's called DC Music Download. Why is it a download? Because it's a news, or it's something that's so fascinating.
Yeah,
it was a podcast.
It was a podcast, and so I bought the domain thinking, okay, all my podcasts are going to be on here, and you can literally just download it from the site, and so that's where it came from.
Wow.
So yeah, and then from there I started finding more people along the way who were interested in contributing more than just the podcast. So then it kind of grew into what it is now, which is a news magazine site which is kind of funny now because the podcast has sort of been put to the wayside for all the stuff that we do now. So we have a staff of around 30 people who produce all sorts of content, amazing contributions, everything from show reviews to amazing interviews, long-form features, events, and we even have a cinematography staff who creates amazing, beautifully shot videos for us. So it's definitely have grown into something much bigger than I anticipated, but I mean, definitely it's been a pretty awesome ride in terms of just seeing it grow and just seeing where everything kind of lies ahead. So,
and if somebody was curious, if they've never heard of DC Music Download, or we were to tell them to check it out, what are you were talking about some of the things that you do, but what are the things that DC Music Download does really well? What will they find?
Well, I think I think this is primarily what keeps me going with DC Music Download. I mean, it's a pretty big effort, a large endeavor, and I think honestly what keeps me going is the fact of telling stories that we feel are really important, bringing to light issues, topics in the community, people who are doing awesome things here, and just kind of bringing to light those people who may not get the attention or maybe the notoriety that they should get, and just kind of put it in the forefront and tell people like, hey, I mean, this is something that you should pay attention to, or this is a great band you should know, or, you know, just a cool project that you might not even realize is happening right in your own backyard that you should kind of check out. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's honestly the most rewarding part of doing this is just being able to spotlight those stories that may not be as easily noticed to the public. So
Wow, that's really cool. All right, so now tell us about Stephanie outside of DC Music Download.
yeah. So, you know, for me, I actually just started this as my full-time thing, which is pretty
Congratulations.
exciting.
That's
Thanks.
exciting. So full-time editor-in-chief, like this is it.
This is it.
Wow.
So it's been pretty crazy. But I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where it's like you just kind of do it and see what happens. But I mean, yeah, for a while I was kind of in the corporate sort of industry, kind of doing that behind the scenes. But you know, in a way, I feel like my personal life and DCMD are very much intertwined. Like, I mean, I kind of see this as like sort of my life, and just, you know, all the stuff that I'm doing right now is stuff that it's not like I separate the two at all. It's sort of, it's all kind of combined into.
Does this mean you pretty much just work 7 days a week and it doesn't feel like work? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, kind of very much so in terms of it not feeling like work.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, I try to go to shows as much as I can. I mean, I'm not getting any younger, I'll say that. So, I mean, going out to shows isn't as easy as it used to be, going out like multiple shows a night and like all that stuff. So, you know, I've been trying my hardest, but, you know, just trying to go as many shows, trying to discover as many many new bands and songs as possible, and just.
And is it just music, or what other hobbies do you have? Tell us more about Stephanie.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of funny because, you know, for me, I actually just, besides music, I like to also, I'm pretty artistic, so I like to kind of do a lot of painting. You know, also I love just going out and exploring art.
Wow,
you know, going to, I mean, one of my favorite museums actually that I like to go to and just kind of like meditate and just kind of be by myself is the Smithsonian American Art Museum and Portrait Gallery. It's like you can go there all day, just kind of walk around. And
is that the one with the courtyard in the middle too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great place to go. You know, love being in the outdoors, which like can't really do much of that now with
it's winter and stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, I love going out, just kind of being outside and just, you know, being able to just meditate and just kind of be able to relax. And so that's kind of where I like to do it. Just going hiking anywhere I can find that's just a good place to kind of be alone. In that sense. Yeah.
When you think back to DC Music Download now, what's the funniest moment that comes to mind?
The funniest moment that comes to mind, you know, I will say that we have a really awesome staff, and we usually every year we go and do a bar crawl for the holidays.
Awesome.
So we usually we usually start out Satellite Room, and then we'll see who's left at the end of the night. It goes from like 20 people to like 3 people.
Okay.
So last year we ended up doing this big pub crawl down U Street is where we usually go. And it was funny because we went to, I think it was Cloak and Dagger, which used to be Patty Boom Boom. And so one of our staff members wanted to, this was like towards the end of the night, by the way. So, you know, like people are having fun, whatever. And somebody wanted to do the rain dance. So they literally took the umbrella, started doing the rain dance in the middle of the club. Some guy, and this like big bodyguard came downstairs and literally just like snatched the umbrella, like full hand, just snatched it. And he's like, "Sir, you gotta go." And he starts, he's like, "But it's raining and I don't know, and I have my camera with me," and he's like, and I'm just like, "Dude, let's just get out of here.
Let's just go."
But yeah, and it was so funny because he was like all like stressed out and he was like running out into the street in the rain. I'm like, oh, that's poor guy. But yeah, we have a lot of fun together, and you know, besides doing like stuff for DCMD, we always like to kind of hang out behind the scenes. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what about, so when you think about biggest success moments now, what's like the biggest success moment that comes to mind with the project?
For me, I would probably say our anniversary shows at 9:30 Club. So, particularly the first one that we did back in 2014. So, up until then, we only had done like maybe two small shows at Rock and Roll Hotel. I mean, we had like no track record with putting on big shows at that capacity.
Yeah.
So, that was sort of the first big event that we did that we were like, okay, let's see how far we've come and what we can do. And so we decided to put together this awesome lineup. We had Drop Electric play,
Nice.
the Sea Life, Young Rapids, and the Raised by Wolves at that time. And it was just, and we also had Girls Rock DC involved, and it was it was like definitely one of, probably the highlight for me. There's been
Wow.
a lot of other concerts have been awesome, but this one particularly stood out because we ended up selling out that venue that night.
Wow.
Yeah, a 1,500 capacity venue that I did not think in my wildest dreams that we'd be able to do, especially at that early in our lifespan.
Yeah.
So it was just so cool to kind of see so many people turn out. And the thing is, a lot of people didn't know. They'll come to see one band, but, a lot of them stayed for the whole show, just like checking out new music and
Wow.
just, being supportive of the DC music scene that night. And I think that was definitely a highlight for me that stood out.
Definitely. Well, I always love to ask, what's one thing you have in your music collection that might surprise us?
Okay, so my mom is Korean,
Okay.
and so she actually exposed me to a lot of K-pop.
Oh, yeah?
Which-
Okay.
Yeah, which is like, like usually in that, like, I'm not, like, I it's one of those things where I would have never have thought.
If they don't know what K-pop is,
So-
that's just Korean pop?
Yeah, it's Korean
Okay.
pop. Really, like, it's just, like, super poppy, what I love about it is just, it's just so catchy, and it's just, like,
Is this like Gangnam Style? Or
yeah,
that,
well, kind
or-
of, yeah. I listen to a little bit of the girl groups. There's like Girls' Generation. There's FX. FX I love. It's like this 5-girl group that they each have like their own very distinct styles.
Yeah.
And they kind of have like a very, not really so much pop, but more so like electronic, dance type of music. And they're really good about like experimenting and diversifying their sound.
That's cool.
So and it's just crazy because I feel like once I got into one band, it just kind of segued into just knowing all these other bands that I like would never have discovered.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of random,
Some
but
K-pop. All
yeah,
right.
so
I
K-pop.
dig it. And the last question I'd love to ask is, if you have one piece of advice you would offer?
One piece of advice that I would offer is to not psych yourself out when it comes to thinking that something, especially a goal that you have in mind, is too big. Because I always feel like anything is possible, but it just depends on the time. Like sometimes you might have a goal and maybe you weren't able to reach it at the time because it just wasn't the right time or you weren't ready for it yet. So I think with us, there's just so many instances where I thought that was the case. Like 9:30 Club and us kind of selling it out that year, like that probably wouldn't have happened prior to it because we just weren't ready yet. And we just weren't able to be at that capacity to do it at that time. But I think, I think just set what you want and then just kind of be realistic about how you're going to get there. But you'll get there. It's just a matter of
Just
when.
figure it out and
Yeah.
get it. I love that. Great stuff. Now, for folks who want to find out more about you and the cool things that are going on and happening with you, where do they go? What are the best sources for that?
All right. So the best one is obviously dcmusicdownload.com. We're also on Facebook at the same handle, DC Music Download, Twitter, same handle, and also we're on Instagram as well.
Got
same
it.
handle.
So social media and the website.
Yes,
That's
and on
the best
Snapchat.